Michelle is on.
Michelle is on, yeah.
You just want to say our high school encore.
Okay, I'd like to call this regularly scheduled board meeting to order. Roll call.
Later here.
Van Creek here. Johnson. And Landon here.
Michelle here. Garrigan here.
Okay, if we could please stand, we're going to have our Ashwaubenon School Choir, encore choir, sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and rockets and flaming came through the night as our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Okay, we get a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, announcement of executive session. In accordance with Wisconsin statutes 19.851C, the executive session will be held at the end of the meeting to consider employment, promotions, compensation, performance evaluation data of any employee over which the body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Citizens and citizens and delegations, is there anybody here that would like to speak something that's not on the agenda? Okay, let's move forward. I believe we have another student presentation.
We actually have a school presentation tonight. What we've asked for all of you is, and to our public, is to give you an opportunity to see what it's like in a remote learning setting. And so what we've asked is one teacher from each building is going to present to you a little bit of what it looks like from a student view and from a teacher view of what remote learning looks like. So we're going to start off with Cormier, go to Valley View, Pioneer, Parkview, and then the high school. So we'll start off with Mr. Carter. Hopefully he's on, and he can introduce his teacher.
Hi, good evening. Just wanted to say something before I introduce or you watch the video of April Moran, our 5th grade teacher, our 5K teacher. One of the things that I get to witness every day is our staff. And it hasn't been easy during remote learning, but I can tell you it has brought the Cormier staff together as a family. Seeing the professional learning communities take place, seeing the staff changing and adapting to the students' needs every day, and this the communication and the overall willingness to work late at night when parents need that eating time as well has just been awesome. We have been learning, we have been taking parents' feedback throughout the whole process. I know this week we started our first social groups. Our counselor, Panya Yang, has done some groups. She did 8 sessions today, 5 to 6 kids per session, and they played Candyland. So it went really well. A lot of the parents and students really enjoyed it. I was a little nervous how that was going to go, but it really went very well, and we got a great response from that. As you can see up on the screen, this is a typical, this is our seesaw, and this is what a student and parent and the teachers see every day for their lessons. So they will be able to go in there, they will be able to click on each one of the lessons. As you can see, there's some that have a camera, and that is where they can take a picture of their work and they can submit it to the teacher. There's also the video camera. That's where they take videos of themselves, of their learning, and they can post that to the teacher as well. You're going to see Kathy rolling up on the screen. We also have library time. So we are doing all the things that they would be able to do at school. So now I'd love you to listen to April Moran and her story. She is not able to join us tonight, but she did record this, and here's her story.
Hello, I'm April Moran, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Cormier School. I work with the littles, and you're probably wondering, what does remote learning look like? How do you do it? I want to share a little sneak peek behind the scenes of what happens at Cormier School. I have to tell you that learning looks so different than it ever has. We couldn't have imagined it. The community at Cormier School has a shared vision. We've always had that shared vision. We know our what, we know the curriculum, and we know the how. But now we have to think outside the box because our how is different. How we're delivering instruction looks so different. And we have to relook at the what, because now we have to kind of put on, I want to say, my magnifying glasses and really focus in on the essentials. We have been challenged to figure out how we're going to make this instruction engaging, and we're doing it. We've put our learning on Seesaw. Teachers pre-record their lessons, we co-create them together. We put them out there so that families have flexibility every day to access these pre-recorded lessons. We also provide tools on Seesaw for students to share their learning. They can take a picture of their work, they can videotape their work, they can use a microphone to explain their thinking, and they can use a variety of creative tools to share their learning process. Teachers also use Seesaw as a way to give feedback back to students, to validate their hard work that they're doing. Seesaw has a lot of tools that allow students and teachers to communicate back and forth. Caregivers are also a part of that communication, which has been a really special gift with remote learning. The other thing that teachers do every single day are Google Meets. We do Google Meets to empower our students. We can provide large group, small group, or individual group. The favorite part of my day is in the morning, in our morning meeting, when I do a Google Meet. And I can see all my students on. We come together, we kind of set the day up together. We share, we greet each other, and it's a reminder that even though we're not in room 118, we are a school family. It's also a reminder for me, it's my why I wake up every day wanting to be a great educator. I also think that Google Meets, individual Google Meets, are a gift in remote learning, because it gives students, young students, many opportunities to meet with their teacher one-on-one. We can take away all the extra distractions and really focus again on that essential learning, which can be transferred then throughout their learning. When things are hard, I have to remind myself sometimes to look at the silver linings. And I have 2 silver linings I want to share with you. One is that in remote learning, families have let us come into their world. I feel like I know my students better than ever because they're surrounded by the people and the places they love and they care about. And so that allows me to adapt my learning right to what's important to them. The other great tool and skill that the children are learning is they're learning metacognition. They're learning to explain their thinking to me because I'm not right next to them. So they have to explain how they're learning. This is a great tool for me as the educator because again, I can adapt their learning to their learning style. And for the learner, this is a wonderful skill, a self-awareness skill of how they're learning. Because we know if we can talk about the learning process, the outcome is stronger. Now I know that this is hard stuff. We hear the frustration in the community, and we're listening, and we are changing and adapting the learning process continually. I also see children learning and growing and changing every single day. And I believe that's because it's our commitment to collaboration, to building relationships, and to focusing on the essentials. A friend once told me that innovation doesn't happen overnight. Thank you for letting me share my story.
All right, in the awesome tech world we live in, I don't know if anyone else's phone is blowing up. YouTube nationally is down right now. So people are saying our YouTube channel isn't working. So it does look like it is still streaming and recording, so we'll have it available when it's available. But yeah, it's #1 trend on Twitter right now nationally that you know, that's good timing, right? So just so you guys are aware that we will, it looks like it's the stream on our end is still working and recording, so we'll have it available. So that's fun. So that's why I've been on my phone as this is going on.
So next on our list is Molly Rayfley, and I will let Dr. Brake introduce his teacher.
Good evening. Doug and I are really proud to introduce Molly Rayfley, who's one of our second grade teachers at Valley View. She's going to talk to you a little bit today about the work that is being done at our first and second grade levels. She'll share a video with you, but no, she'll also be available afterwards if you have questions for her or just had more that you were interested in. I think kind of echoing some of the things that Brian and April had talked about, the work that we've done as a school district and the work that we've done at Valley View over the last few years to really build strong professional learning communities in our school has been extremely invaluable over these past few months since March. I think the work that we've been able to do since March, we've come a long, long way since March, but the work that we've been able to do has really been much, much easier as a result of all the work we've done with PLCs. It's really allowed us to take a typical week of learning, which obviously looks very, very different than a week of virtual learning, but allowed our teams to work together and make those adjustments and reimagine the way that we're teaching, and it's made it much, much easier than if PLCs didn't exist. Also, just kind of piggyback on something April said, one of the things that I think maybe Molly will say it, but I know many of our teachers would say it, the ability to individualize our instruction for students through remote learning has probably been one of the best parts of remote learning. Again, we know it's not ideal. We know that there's been many struggles for families, but that ability to sit down with a student one-on-one for 30 minutes and just focus on that student is something that our teachers could never do during in-person instruction. So that is definitely a positive. So I'm going to turn it over to Molly. I know she'll have lots of great information to share with you.
Of course, when I tested it, it popped up right away last time.
It's not on YouTube, is it?
So I understand correctly, then nobody else can see us right now.
Well, there are 50-some people watching, so either they're watching something that isn't working well or it is working for some.
I'm getting.
If it doesn't load, do you just want me to verbally talk about my video?
Hold on, I can, I have it downloaded so I can,
Okay.
I plan B just for this exact reason.
Hi, Molly.
Hi, Molly. Hi, everybody.
So no, too, this is kind of one of the sometimes struggles, I think, with remote learning is sometimes there are technology snafus.
Good evening, board members, administrators, and Ashwaubenon School District.
So I was gonna say, sometimes there's technology struggles where teachers have gotten to be experts at, not that they weren't always, but just adjusting on the fly and going without the plan that they had in place if there's a technology issue.
I'll throw in there, I think it's in, this is Doug Bishek, by the way, that Molly touches on this, I think, in hers, but we heard students wanting to be more social with each other, so just this week we started lunch bunches, and I got to do the first one, and we had about 10 third graders
Good evening, board members,
the first day,
administrators,
and then we
Ashwaubenon.
did a fourth grade one yesterday, and there were over 40 students in it. So it was great to have students connect with each other. We had a fifth grade one today. We had over 20 students. So just finding different ways for students to be social and connect with each other. So.
Okay.
Ashwaubenon School District families, thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about remote learning. First, I'd like to start with an overview of a typical day in the life of a primary student. Each learning day starts with a morning meeting or a daily message. Students view lessons in the core areas of math, reading, writing, and phonics. Students also receive instruction in social studies, science, encore classes, and life skills. All lessons are pre-recorded so that families can support their child's learning at a time that works best for them. While students are viewing mini lessons and completing activities, the teachers are meeting with students one-on-one or in small groups. The one-on-one and small group time is crucial in helping us move students forward in their learning. Because it is one-on-one or small groups, the learning is differentiated and it is the exact instructions the students need. On Wednesdays, teachers collaborate with their grade level teams across the district and curriculum coaches to ensure that we are on track with the district KPIs. Next, I'd like to show you what remote learning looks like from a student's point of view. Again, each primary student starts their learning day with a morning meeting or a daily message. This is a time when teachers welcome students, build classroom community, and explain what the students will be learning that day. For math, students view a lesson created by their teacher and complete an activity on Seesaw. Teachers use the activities to inform their instruction for one-on-one and small group lessons. The activities are there to help us know what learning students are taking on and what learning they need more support with in our Google Meet. In the areas of reading, writing, and phonics, students view a video created by teachers at the Teacher College in New York City. The students were introduced to these teachers the start of the year as co-teachers. One reason we chose to use the videos from Heinemann is because it frees up teacher time to have meaningful instructional minutes with students rather than spending time on creating videos. Also, the videos are created by literacy experts and follow our district pacing guides. Here is a sample of what a first grade student would see for a phonics lesson. The teachers have made the directions very user-friendly so that students can access the lesson independently or with little adult support. They've also made it caregiver-friendly so that caregivers can see exactly what their students must accomplish for that lesson. Here you can see the teacher lists the materials the student will need to complete the activities and also provides visual support and a voiceover. In step 2, the student views a video, and in step 3, the student completes the activity and uploads it to Seesaw. It might seem somewhat complicated, but the students have really caught on and have gotten into a routine of accessing their learning and completing their work. Students also receive instruction from each of their encore classes in Seesaw. Students view the lesson video from their encore teacher and then complete the activity. To help students with their workload, we ask that they complete their encore activities by the end of each week. Small group and one-on-one instruction is what teachers spend the bulk of their day on. We plan meaningful lessons for our one-on-one meetings in the core content areas of math, reading, and writing. During our math meeting, we teach students math clock. We reteach strategists our enriched students at their level. During our reading meetings, we use literacy footprints, book from books, and ethics to provide reading instruction at students' just right reading level. During our writing meetings, we meet students where they are in the writing process and help guide them to the next step. The one-on-one meetings and small group instruction is where we really get to know our students and how they are learning. It is when we provide intervention, on-the-go practice, and enrichment for our diverse learners. It is important to us to give feedback in a timely manner to our students. The feedback we provide reinforces or corrects the concepts we are working on throughout the week. A few ways we provide student feedback is through typed messages and recorded messages about work they've uploaded to Seesaw, notes about reading and writing goals they are working on, and verbal feedback during our one-on-one and small group meetings. We know that parent support is vital to remote learning. In order to help remote learning run as smoothly as possible, we know we must provide clear communication to families. A few ways that we communicate with families is through class announcements in the Seesaw app, Messenger through the Seesaw app, email, and phone calls. We also spend time talking about student progress during our virtual parent-teacher conferences. We are so thankful for everything parents are doing to help their child be successful with remote learning. We understand that not being in school may be difficult for some students. The social emotional needs of our students is very important to us. To meet the social emotional needs of students, we have several resources available for students to socialize with their classmates and talk to trusted adults. Some of these resources are lunch bunches with the principals and counselors, individual students and small group meetings with counselors, classroom Google Meets, which provide students with an opportunity to socialize with classmates and build classroom community, and Encore Google Meets, which provide students with additional opportunities to engage with one another in a learning environment. Thank you so much for listening and for your support in working with our district leaders.
Thank you.
Kurt and Jay, I wasn't sure, did you want to ask Miley questions right now, or did you want to save questions until the end?
Anybody have questions for Molly?
Not at this time.
No, I think we're good, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, thank you very much.
Nice job, Molly.
Thanks, job, Molly.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Martel, and he's going to introduce his teacher.
Great job, Molly. Moving on, I'm Pete at Pioneer. I'm super proud of our Pioneer team and our whole elementary team in remote learning. They've worked so hard on building relationships remotely and prioritizing learning as our top goals at the elementary. Tonight, Mrs. VandenHegen, a Pioneer 5th grade teacher, will share out what 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade learning looks like. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here is Mrs. VandenHegen.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Nope,
No.
we're not switching. This is why we have Plan B, right?
Hello, Ashwaubenon community members,
Wrong one.
parents,
Hold on.
and school board.
I guess.
That's no kids and go.
Good evening, board members, administration, and Ashwaubenon families. Thank you for taking the time to learn about remote learning at the intermediate level for both students and teachers. So as I'm making this presentation, I'm using Screencastify, which is a resource that we are using to present new material to students each day throughout the week. So you might see me moving my screen around a little bit just to make sure you can see my slides as I'm talking to them. So thank you for your patience as I work through this. Remote learning, as it looks for our intermediate teachers right now. I want to share kind of a rundown of what a general day looks like. These times are estimates and pretty typical for third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers. There's also a few things that are different at each grade level, so I will interject on those that might not be listed as well. So we typically start with a morning meeting that could be live with our students in a Google Meet. It might also be a slide put together with a recorded message sent out via Google Classroom. We then have to spend time planning, creating, recording, and posting every single day. We do that for 7 different items every day. And math is probably our most labor intensive. We have to record and front load all of the learning that happens for math and create videos for that, and then post it and monitor students' work for that. We have started sharing the workload with that. So 60 minutes per day is average. If I'm making a video for my team, I probably spend about 3 hours between planning, creating, recording, putting slides together, all of that. So that time does vary from teacher to teacher and at each grade level, but like I said, is our most labor intensive. Words Their Way is our word study program that we make a short learning video at the start of the week or the start of a new sort, and then various activities that the kids already have experienced go about 2 weeks for each sort. So we spend about 10 minutes a day getting that posted and planned out. Reading and writing, which I'll speak to in a little bit, take us about 30 minutes each to get ready each day, and read aloud depending if we're reading to our students or if we found some pre-recorded reading. Takes 10 to 20 minutes to post and get ready each day. And then we are teaching either science or social studies right now, which could include a recorded learning video or planning out and finding materials that complement what we're teaching. And then we all have Google Meet help sessions that look just a little bit different depending on the student's needs and the teacher. We all spend at least 2 hours a day in open meets helping students. And then we also have more personalized one-on-one and group meets, which is about 2 to 3 hours every day. And then in between there, we also need to be collaborating with our teammates to make sure that we're all pacing well, monitoring our submitted student work, which we then need to correct and reteach as needed. And that's for 5 of our classes. So 5 classes that we go through each of the students' work. So in my case, I have 20 students, so that's 100 assignments a day that I'm looking through and making sure my students are on track with their learning. And then we also need to be responding to students and parents via email or email chats for our students if they have quick questions that we can help with. And then in between there, we also meet with students as needed, like I said, for that teaching and questions and support throughout the day. So this is just a quick example of what a morning meeting slide might look like for students as they get ready for each day. So the slide has to be prepared and updated. And then where my video is covering up right now, there's also a morning message talking to the students about each of these activities and giving them any tips and tricks and pointers that'll help them through the day. Also lists the Google Meets and where to find the links. And so students get this each day in one way or another from their teachers, whether it's live or presented in a slide like this, which is sent via email. Thank you for your patience. All right, so this is a teacher entry in Google Classroom. So we open up a new assignment, we have to title it, give instructions to the students, and then we have to add documents and videos for the students to view. So the document, as you can see down here, is first created in Google Classroom and then as attached to this assignment. And by choosing make a copy for each student, you'll see in your activity in a little bit that students then go and post their work in that document. Students can also attach a picture, which we've been working on because them taking a picture with the device is much better, as you will see then trying to get a picture from their Chromebook. And then a video has to be attached that had to be created by one of our teammates or ourselves if it was our turn to create the video. And so this all gets posted and assigned. We actually can schedule assignments so we can be posting things the day before so they're ready to go first thing in the morning. This I wanted to also share is our daily entry for reading or writing in the classroom. So I wanted to talk about this as well because the district has purchased a 1-year subscription for each of our homeroom teachers at the elementary level of the units of study for reading and writing, which we have adopted over the last few years. This resource was shared from Jill's budget and then the principal's budget, half and half. And each teacher has a subscription, and within the subscription are live teaching videos from the professionals at the Teachers College. So the writers and creators of our reading and writing program created these videos to accommodate schools going through exactly what we're going through. So though we don't have to create our own videos, we still need to watch the student videos so that we can support students afterward. Sometimes there's a teacher video attached that we also can watch and get from the experts. And then there also may be like a workshop or small group video that we can view to help us. So that prep takes 20 to 30 minutes depending on what extras are with the lesson. And then, and in this case, I went through and viewed the lesson and noticed that the co-teacher, we call them our co-teachers, our co-teacher talks about the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Well, not all of our students might have heard that story. So then a quick video had to be made reading that story to the students so they have the background knowledge needed to be successful in this lesson. And then as you can see, there's another Google Doc attached for them to be posting their work, as well as a link for them to read the story if they'd rather not listen to me read it. I also wanted to point out that I'm not redoing any of this because with our teaching, like we are in the classroom, we want this to be live and real and have students know that what we're doing isn't perfect and we're not expecting them to be perfect either. So this is kind of what they get from us each day as they're watching our slides. All right, so that's kind of what is happening on the teacher end of things. This is what is going on with our students. An intermediate student will email every morning. They'll check their calendar to see if they've scheduled any meets with their teachers, and then they'll need to log into Google Classroom. And the expectation put forth by the district is that students are spending approximately 30 minutes each on math, reading, writing, words their way about 10 minutes, read aloud 5 to 10 minutes, and then science or social studies for 20 minutes, and then that small group or one-on-one meetings, 10 to 20 minutes, and then specials for 30 minutes. So our goal is that intermediate students are spending 2 to 3 hours on their learning each day. And then as they go through each of those things, they need to submit work per directions from their teacher. And here's what a view for students looks like. So if a student is in a grade level that is using just one single classroom with different folders, this is what a snapshot of the day looks like. So this past Monday, these were the assignments posted for a 4th grader in Mrs. McComb's class, and then the students would click into the assignment for additional directions and what they need to do for that day of learning. And then if a student opens up Google Classroom and is a 5th grader, they have each subject as a different classroom. We chose to set things up this way because at the middle school, they have different teachers, so there's different classrooms. So we were hoping that we were going to be bridging any of those technology needs moving from 5th grade to 6th grade, should students be needing to access Google Classroom next year as 6th graders. All right, so it is going to be your turn to try this out. Before we do that, I just wanted to share a couple of things. Mr. Martel asked me to talk about our struggles as well as the positive pieces of remote teaching. And struggles, it's difficult to pinpoint and say this is the exact struggle of every single teacher, but I do feel confident saying that our biggest struggles that are consistent across grade levels, across buildings, is the amount of time that we're investing into each day of learning and really staying true to ourselves and our own well-being, but also wanting to support our students on every second of this journey and being respectful of the fact that every family is working through this at different times of the day based on their family's needs. So the time piece has been an incredible struggle. Also, the other big struggle is our families that we can't connect with, that we can't get students to be doing their work. We can't reach the students. We, our social workers, our SEL team are all working hard on getting in touch with these students and getting that buy-in and commitment from those families. So knowing that there are students that no matter how much and how often we are reaching out and trying to support them, that we still might not be meeting their needs in some way. So that is an incredible struggle. Something that is definitely a positive of all of this is the amount of time we get to spend with individuals. So it is through a computer screen, we still are connecting with and building relationships and really getting to know our students as individual learners, which there's not always time for in our traditional school setting. So this has really went well to knowing our learners and meeting their needs when we are able to connect with them in small groups and work one-on-one with them. Okay, so what you're going to need to do right now is you're going to need to join or log into Classroom and click on the classroom that you joined earlier this week with me. And there's going to be an assignment posted. It is very short, I promise, but I just want you to experience what our students are experiencing and what our teachers are experiencing working through Google Classroom and what's expected of them. So you might be thinking right now, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure how to get to Google Classroom, but don't worry. If you pause the video and give me just a second, I will walk you through getting into Google Classroom, and then you'll pause the video again, and I will also walk you through posting in Google Classroom. So get your computers open and logged in and get ready to join your Google Classroom. All right, hopefully you had enough time.
All right. So is everyone there?
So are you supposed to be on the assignment?
In the classroom, I think she's gonna walk through the assignments. I think if you're in her classroom.
To get logged onto your computers. If you haven't already, open up a new browser.
She's gonna show how to get into her.
Give me a second.
She's gonna show how.
Please pause the video. Okay, once you're in Google, you'll need to click right here. This is called the waffle. Click on the waffle, the 3x3 array of dots, and a drop-down screen will appear. And you need to go to Classroom. So click on Classroom. And then if this is the first classroom you've joined, then that's all you'll have is the November board meeting classroom. You'll click into that classroom. And then right now on my screen, you can't see anything, but I promise at the board meeting, you'll be able to see this assignment right here in classwork. You'll click on that assignment and begin following the directions. Okay, pause the video and start working on your assignment. Okay.
So while you're working on it, YouTube apparently is a mix nationally. We've got about 100 people on the screen, but I've been to about 100 emails say they can't. So we can send a communication out, letting people know that we're recording this and we'll have it available as soon as we can.
I sent her a text. Within a minute, she had it up.
Yeah, she's pretty good at that.
That's pretty good. Should we take a picture of their phone, or what do we do?
Do it with the computer?
She's gonna walk through how to do that, I think. So you guys all done? All right, I'll press play.
So you're ready to share your work with me. You should have this Google document open from the classroom. And once you have this open, make sure you go right up here. There's directions posted on what to do, but just in case this is your first time posting, click on Insert right here in the menu, then hover over Image, and then scroll down and select Camera and click on Camera. If a camera doesn't pop up right away on your screen, you'll have to allow Google Docs to access your camera. And then once your screen has a picture of yourself on it, you're gonna hold up your piece of paper, get it in there nice and clear, and then you'll also need to click at the same time to insert your picture. Once you can see your picture right here, you'll want to go up on the document. Mine doesn't say this, but right next to where it says share, up here yours will say turn in. So click turn in and you'll be all finished with your assignment. And I'll be able to provide immediate feedback on your work once you click turn in. All right, so that's everything that I have about our day in the life of remote learning. I will be on tonight's call as well if you have any questions or need follow-up information. Otherwise, I really appreciate you taking the time to learn about our experiences at the intermediate level. Thank you.
I have this,
I haven't seen it, but I can.
so I'm in a private conversation with you. But I can't get back to this.
Alyssa is in the meet.
You guys all failed, y'all.
I did it. I got it.
We need to get a third grader in here.
I'm stuck in the private.
Thank you for having me tonight, everybody. As you can see, trying to get your picture nice and clear on there is probably pretty challenging, and times that by about 100 every day. That has been probably a big technological challenge for us. We've actually taught our kids to load the app and take a picture with the device. It turns out much clearer than trying to hear it on that screen.
Any questions for Alyssa before we start?
Yeah, that was good.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Miss Husek, and she is going to introduce the Parkview Features.
Good evening, everyone. Good job to all of those that have presented already. I would like to echo what the other administrators have said, but I'm not going to do it literally for sake of time.
Parents and school board.
I do want to just explain what a day in the life of a remote learning middle schooler looks like. Our students log on to their Google Meet classes each hour at the start of a class. So they follow their regular 7-period class or day, and they log in at the beginning of the class, attendance is taken, and the teacher will either teach a mini lesson at that time, or will give directions and an overview of the agenda for the day, and then send the students to their Google Classroom. The Google Meets happen for all 7 class periods. And in addition, we also have Tuesdays from 10:59 to 11:29. All students participate in family time, which is our SEL time during the week. Our students are able to play games with their classroom family teacher and the classmates. They have been having fun playing the newly popular Among Us game, Pictionary, Cahoots categories, or sometimes they just sit and chat about what's going on in their life, and it's just their social time to relax. Our school counselors and social worker are also meeting weekly and daily one-on-one in small groups with students who they were seeing previous to us going remote. And also students that they had small groups with, so they have continued those groups via Google Meet. So today I would like to introduce 4 different people from Parkview. We have a team of 2 8th grade ELA teachers, Kristen Genovese and Colleen Hansen. Danielle Morris is an electives teacher. She cannot be here with us tonight, but she recorded a brief video to share with you about what an elective class looks like with remote learning. And then lastly, Steve Velberg is going to be on. Kristen, Colleen, and Steve are all on virtually, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. And Jamie, before you hit play for the video, Kristen and Colleen would like to do a brief introduction. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Genovese and I will announce myself on the video as well, so you get double introduction tonight. Jamie, is it possible if I could share my screen and do the poll everywhere question for you?
Yeah, sure, give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you. So as Jamie's allowed me to share my screen here, I'm just gonna pull up a question. And basically, you can use your Chromebooks if you have them, or if you are on a phone, you can follow the instructions in the top of the screen. And you will be able to actually join a live question. And this is just a sample of something that we are actually going to ask our students for the second part of the unit that we are in.
Go ahead, Phil, you can share.
Okay, thank you. All right, so up on the screen, hopefully you will see this big question that we have. What do you think is the most serious issue facing our world today? And on top of that, you can follow those directions. As I said on the Chromebook, if you want to just type in that website and respond there, you can. Or again, if you'd like to use your cell phone, if you have that, feel free to text the Kristen Genova 598 to 37607, and you're able to participate in that way as well.
Kristen, I'm going to read it out loud.
Thank you.
So it's pollev.com/Kristen, GENOV 598. Is that too fast?
Yes.
So pollev.com.
Pollev, what's that?
Pollev, sorry, Pollev.
What's the numbers, 5 what?
598. So it's POLLEV.com/KRISTINGENOV 598.
598?
Yep.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yep.
And as you answer and plug in your A, B, C, D, E, or F, we can see we already have one answer in. And this is where the chat function also comes in handy with the students. I usually just put the link straight in there so they can click it on their Chromebooks and they have instant access to that question. All right, and you can see in real time, there's another, and a third answer as well, or maybe a few coming in. And you can see it changes, more and more people participate. This is something that we use to kind of catapult that discussion in remote learning for our classes. All right, so instead of sitting here all night and looking at the screen, I will stop sharing, and thank you for participating in that little activity. And now Colleen and I have our video to present. Thank you. Hello, Ashwaubenon community members, parents, and school board. My name is Kristen Genovese, and along with my colleague, Colleen Hansen, we would love to give you a look into the world of remote learning. Colleen and I are both 8th grade ELA teachers at Parkview Middle School. And one huge component of remote learning for us is making sure that students have communication lines open to us, as well as making sure that we foster relationships with teachers and fellow classmates. During this time, more than ever, students need that social interaction in order to excel and succeed. One way that we do this is simply by greeting every single student by name as they come into class. We want them to know that we value them and that we are so excited that they are there to learn remotely with us. We do the same exact thing as we end class as well and say goodbye to every single student and let them know that we can't wait to see them again. One other thing we do, especially to make clear communication with students, is to have a regular schedule that we follow, whether it's in-person learning or remote learning. So every single day in ELA class, students know that we're going to quickly review what happened in the days before. We will then have a mini lesson learning what we need to for the day. That will be followed by either small group or independent work time, during which the teacher is able to communicate and conference one-on-one with the student or in small groups. Colleen will talk a little bit more about that in breakout rooms in a little bit. After that, students are brought back together at the end, and we have a quick ending activity before we send them on their way to their next Google Meet class. One final way that we make sure that we as teachers are available to students is to have an appointment calendar. We have our email set up so that students know they can click on appointment calendar underneath our name at any time, and that will bring them to a schedule, and they can schedule any time that is convenient for them, whether it's about help on homework, whether it's help with a particular ELA skill, or if they just want that human interaction for the day, we are available for our students. Colleen and I also work very closely with the 6th grade ELA teachers, the 7th grade ELA teachers, and our literacy coach, Angela Kelly, in order to continually think of new ways to engage students and foster relationships. Big shout out to them as we go forward. Colleen is going to talk about what we are specifically doing in our 8th grade ELA class right now.
So one of the things that 8th grade ELA has had a lot of success with so far during remote learning has been our dystopia book clubs. Because the book clubs are not just for reading, but they're for talking. And we try and focus on that piece. There are so many Google features that help with this during remote learning. We have Google breakout rooms that really encourage discussion. So if I have 7 groups in my classroom, I can create 7 breakout rooms. They can be working independently, having discussion, and then I can jump into each of their rooms and add to the conversation, listen to what they're doing, and kind of do a formal assessment of what's going on. The other thing that helps me get a really quick read of the room are the polls. So it's an activity that I just post a question. How do you feel today? Do you feel like a Jedi Master, a Jedi Knight, Padawan, or a youngling? They will answer. It gives me a quick read of the room so I know how to proceed. The Talk Feature is also a wonderful tool because it helps encourage kids to participate even if they're not comfortable having the mic on. The last thing that we do that really helps with our dystopian book clubs are Google Forms. At the end of the day, not every day, but at the end of the day, it's a perfect way to do a formative assessment, get a good read on the class. What do they know? What do they still need to work on? And that helps us prepare for the following day. There's also another big shout out that needs to go to our library. Carly Monroe and Fami VandenHegen have been doing a fabulous job of checking out our books, getting the books to the kids, and having the kids return the books. So thank you to them.
So Kristen and I are available if you have any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, what kind of other tools that you've been using? Like I could see that poll tool being used, like when you come back into a classroom. Have you, as you have been really navigating the remote learning, are there things that you see that could also be used then for in classroom when that happens?
Are you saying like, have we discovered things that we would use once we go back to class?
Yeah, like some of the apps, like the polls that you use, like
Absolutely.
I could see that being used in the classroom to instead of everyone talking, quick go in there.
So there are a lot of things that we have played around with. There's that fine balance between introducing new apps or new platforms just for the sake of a new platform, or is it something that is really going to change the way we're doing something? So is it technology for technology's sake, or is it going to help us with our teaching and the students with their learning? So polls is one thing that we decided that we really like to be able to get a read of the room, that we will definitely continue to incorporate once we go back face to face.
And I think that's the wonderful thing about teaching as well, is that you are able to try out these new things and the things that work in this remote learning time, which we never thought that we would be in, we can actually use to better whatever classroom instruction that we're in the future. So that's been a great experimental time, I guess. And this one works really well. It actually has open-ended questions also. So if we have students who maybe are a little bit more shy, they can actually participate just like through writing, and the answers will come up anonymously in that particular part, where it's so different type of question in the poll everywhere, but we have some options there.
The other nice thing about teaching 8th grade is that we're able to get immediate feedback from the students, whether the activity or the technology worked or didn't work, what they like better, what's easier for them too. So we take all of that into consideration.
Yes, they definitely tell us if they're confused or not, so that's nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Chris, I'm gonna move to the second video. I'm hoping it streams because this is one I couldn't download, so.
Okay.
It looks
If it doesn't work, maybe we could just share it with the board members.
It's working.
At Parkview Middle School. This is my little office studio where I've been working from home. And my setup is really similar to my setup at school. As long as I have my essentials, I'm good to go. So I have my laptop, I have my document camera where I can make my videos, and I have access to my art supplies. One of the best things about teaching virtually is having all of my contacts right in one place. So I have my videos, my worksheets, my slideshows, my slide presentations, everything. It has been uploaded right here to my Google Classroom.
Sorry guys, I forgot to share the screen. I'm getting yelled at. I was doing so well too.
I did not yell.
No, by the vibrations in my phone, I was getting yelled at virtually.
All capital.
Yeah, it was all caps, bolded.
Not by me, Jamie.
All right. It might restart.
And the students also have access to it whenever and wherever they are, and it's always available to them. I try to communicate to my students that whatever they need, myself and the school will do our best to provide that for them. So communication has been really important throughout this time. I have been available to my students more often lately than I have ever been before in the past, whether it be emails at 9 p.m. on a Saturday or a Google meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon. I try to be there when they need me. One challenge that we've been facing would be access to supplies. Even though if they communicate what they need, I can provide that for them and they can pick it up from the school. But it also limits what it is we're creating in the classroom. However, we have done some really fun things. We tend to stick to basic things like paper and drawing materials. So we may not be hands deep in clay or paint, but we have been doing some really interesting projects, learning about techniques that students can use in future art classes, like the elements of art, how to use them, how to analyze a work of art, and the vocabulary of art. I want to make sure that my students are creating 4 main components. So creating art, responding to art, presenting art, and connecting to art. In fact, my photography students will be presenting their photo essays for their story through pictures this week. They've been learning about the compositional elements and techniques of taking a photo and how to use them as photojournalists would. My art students have also been very busy learning about techniques and creating some fun projects in portraits and abstract drawings, creating with line and creating patterns and texture, and stippling projects that I put together a little showcase for you to view. So I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share it with you this evening, and I really hope you enjoy.
Mr. Melbert was going to share verbally.
Yep, I wish I had some music to share with you because that was pretty awesome, but I'll just use words. First of all, thank you to the Ashwaubenon School Board members, to Mr. Wires, to Jamie, to all the community members, including parents, teachers, and administrators for being here tonight and for taking the time to engage in this conversation. I can say without hesitation, I am really proud of the leadership in this room and in my building and the teachers I work with and the amazing efforts they've undertaken to make difficult choices while maintaining a laser-like focus on student growth and learning. And that's where the student engagement piece really comes in. I think student engagement can be measured or evaluated in many ways, but traditionally, schools, our metrics have been based on student achievement, our ability to meet students' collective and individual needs, and our initiatives towards bridging achievement gaps. My experiences thus far as a remote learning teacher have been very positive and consistently improving as the weeks have passed. For instance, I've been empowered to use breakout rooms for student collaboration, and with each passing week, I've noted students' conversations have been evolving as they too have learned how to capitalize on their time working together, learning together. I've repeatedly used low-stake inquiries requiring students to respond via chat within our Google Meets during class time to empower every student to participate without worrying about putting themselves in the spotlight. Using these chat-based questions helps me to gauge the success of the teaching point and my delivery too, as I get instant feedback on how many kids get it, how many kids still unsure. Often, these whole class questions give me insight as to where students are in terms of social and emotional learning. For example, it might be asking students, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you doing? And they in turn rank how they feel about their day, or how well they're understanding the lesson, or even their weekends. But here's the thing, with each passing day and week, teachers are getting better and better at using the tools, and so are the kids. I can only speak to my middle school experience, but in terms of proof of learning and growth, students are exactly the same pace and success rate in terms of content in my class as they were a year ago. I know that our hybrid model was extremely meticulous, well thought out, best intention. I personally believe that the current model at Parkview, students attending remotely for 4 days a week, plus a day of small group and one-on-one intervention, is more engaging for students than students attending in person 2 days a week. Essentially, In my professional opinion, kids are learning more with our remote model with 4 to 5 days of engagements than they were with our hybrid model, 2 to 3 days. Conclusion, I know collectively we can trust that we are continuing to make the right decisions for the long-term health of our community, maximizing learning and growth potential for every student, and we are consistently working to maintain this amazing reputation that we have in the Ashwaubenon School District as the district of choice in our area. Thank you.
Thank you,
Be happy to
Steve.
answer any questions if you have any. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Rivers, want to start your introduction?
Ready? All right, from the high school, we have one speaker. Jason Hill is one of our math teachers. And of course, at the high school, most teachers only teach one subject area. In fact, most teachers only teach certain classes within that subject area, different from elementary and things like that. So, you know, the experience of a band teacher and a math teacher and a phy ed teacher and a special ed teacher might be very different, but I chose one teacher. And I know Jason is there. He also has a presentation. So I have a presentation and Jason. Just as a quick reminder, at the high school as well, we have remote learning on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays with their regular bell schedule. And then Wednesday is kind of a remote self-paced day for students to get caught up, work. That's also a day that students have the ability to work with their teachers to come into school. On any given Wednesday, we'll have 120 to today we had well over 200 kids in the building at different points of the day. But the most students I ever saw in a classroom at any one time actually was 5 kids today. So they're all in small groups with teachers and things like that. So that's kind of the schedule as we see it right now. Mr. Hill.
Let's start the video.
Good evening to the entire Ashwaubenon School District family. First, I want to thank you for your interest and your support in what remote learning looks like in our buildings. Specifically, I'll talk about the high school and more specifically, math classroom. So our typical high school schedule is broken into 4 periods, just like if we were in face-to-face instruction. We are under the block schedule, so each period is an hour and a half. There's a 30-minute collaboration time at the beginning of the day for teachers. There's also another 30-minute time for teachers and students with office hours that I'll talk about a little later. So in a typical class period, the start of the period would most likely start with a live Google Meet among teachers and students. The high school uses Google Classroom exclusively as our primary form of communication. So from there, there's probably some direct instruction, so whether that be for 15 minutes or up to even an hour in some cases. And then the teacher may direct students to different programs, one being Ingenuity, which is our exclusive virtual program for our virtual students, but we are able to use that in collaboration with our in-person students. Other teachers are using Edpuzzle, Jamboard. Advanced placement teachers are using AP Classroom. So these are all different platforms that teachers are using, but again, there are many more out there that teachers are using that are being very effective with student learning. So then for the remainder of the period, we are answering emails. Many questions come through or via email from students, so we're spending the time answering those. Also meeting individually with students or in small groups via Google Meet. And then also the last 30 minutes is designed for an extension intervention time where teachers can meet with individual groups of students or individual students to give them that extra help or that extension that they might want. The office hour time, again, that I mentioned every day but Wednesdays from 1 to 1:30 can still be used for that extended intervention or extension time. Answering emails, many questions come through email and we are spending a lot of time answering those throughout the day. On Wednesdays, there is no face-to-face instruction, but this can be used for collaboration among teachers within departments. It can also be used for an extended office hour time, so meeting individually with students via Google Meet, meeting in small groups, answering emails, answering questions that students may have throughout the day on Wednesday from the previous 2 days or from weeks ago, or to prepare them for what's to come. Also, my favorite part of Wednesdays is working in person with students in the classroom. Students are able to come in on Wednesdays and you can get some face-to-face instruction with them right in front of you. This is the best way to make sure and get that immediate feedback if students are actually learning or not. Only a quick snapshot. I teach a freshman level algebra course and 2 AP calculus courses. So in my freshman algebra, I have a live Google Meet to start each class period, about 15-20 minutes, where I am giving some direct instruction on what the topic is for that day and what skills I really want them to grasp on that day. And then I send them to Ingenuity, where they will get some more instruction, some reinforcement instruction from that Ingenuity program. Then they'll take a quick quiz, which gives them immediate feedback on if they were able to grasp the skills that were needed for that day. As for AP Calculus, there is no Ingenuity, so I am basically lecturing live from anywhere from 15 to 60 minutes. And then for the remainder of that class period, as long as, and with algebra, just taking any questions, answering emails. If students stay on after the Google Meet in small groups or individually, we can answer those questions. And then also, just throughout the rest of the day, meeting individually with students or in small groups, answering emails, answering any questions by actually doing the math problems, taking pictures, sending it to them, doing the problems live, recording yourself, explaining, and so on. So overall, a typical day is answering many, many questions that students have. That's the most difficult thing, is trying to answer all these questions via remote, where we can get that feedback very, very quickly, being in person or in the classroom. So again, I want to thank you for your interest in our typical day of remote learning. And we want to thank you for your support of education in our district. We're all in this together to prepare students to be the most successful as they can be. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I think he's
Jason, are you still there? Oh, maybe he's not.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are, okay. So this is Brian VandenHegen. So my question is similar to what Steve Melberg just told us, that he thinks that the students at Parkview are on pace with the learning from previous years. You know, given that math is pretty complicated and probably more difficult to teach remotely, how would you assess where students are in your math classes? Are they on pace with previous years?
Well, thanks for putting me on the spot, Mr. VandenHegen. I do, I teach some advanced placement courses, and from my experience thus far, my students are a little bit behind pace. I will be honest that way. So they are missing some concepts from last spring. We know math is a building block course. So from last spring in Math 5, which would be an advanced pre-calculus course, to now calculus, they are definitely missing some of the key concepts thus far.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Great. Any other questions for anyone else on here?
Nice job, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the whole purpose of this, I know it took longer than we might have thought, but the whole purpose was really to kind of give you guys an idea, to educate our board, our community about the things that happen in a classroom. Certainly you've heard things that can go really well. We've seen things that maybe don't go so well around technology and some of those things. And also heard some things that maybe could go better. And so, but I really wanted to show you the amount of effort and work that's going on behind the scenes to get this done. Certainly we grew a lot from last spring to where we are today. I keep hearing that continually from parents, that yes, compared to last spring, it's 100 times better. But again, we obviously want parents, some want in person, some don't. And so I just wanted to give you a picture of the great work that our teachers are doing every day in the environment that they have to do their work. Okay? Hopeful? That's a huge one.
we're not taking any comments tonight. Okay, let's move on to our consent agenda, which consists of minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting held Wednesday, October 28th, the minutes of the special board meeting held Monday, November 2nd, schedule of checks written, 10/20 through 11/2, schedule of referendum checks written, 10/22 through 11/4. We need a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Superintendent's report.
All right. So as we started off our school board meeting tonight with having our encore choirs sing the national anthem, I just want to take a minute to recognize Veterans Day. Tuesday, November 11th, we recognize all of our veterans. I have a couple fun facts to share with you. November 19th, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th as Armistice Day. On May 13th, 1938, November 11th, Veterans Day became a national holiday honoring all veterans. Raymond Weeks led a parade on November 11th, 1940, honoring veterans of all wars. And then finally, it was renamed to Veterans Day in 1954 to honor American veterans of all wars. So on behalf of the entire Ashwaubenon School District, I would like to publicly thank all veterans in our community and across the United States for their tremendous service to our country. Please join me in a moment of silence in remembrance of all veterans. Thank you. Now we're going to play a quick song. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's from our encore choir. And there are pictures of different Ashwaubenon, I'm pretty sure Ashwaubenon people who have served as veterans. So enjoy the song and the video.
So this is on YouTube, so
It's on YouTube, the whole concert is.
This is our family and friends of choir members.
Over hill, over dale, we run in the dusty trail, and lost three songs, one rolling along. In and out, in the shop, come the marching on the rock, and lost three songs, one rolling along. For it's high, in the field, and the green, and down the mountains are the strong. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And where you go, you always know that the great songs go rolling along. Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college shores, we still have great content, when practices are guide, our pledge our motto too. We're always ready to overtime, hang a starting line for you. Off we go into our blue yonder, riding high to the sun. Here they come, shooting to me our thunder, and boys, here we come. Down we die, spreading our flames from under, on the woods they will roll. We live, we play, for nothing stopping hills and walls. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will find our country's battles in the air of land and sea. As we fight for rights and freedom, and to keep our homeland free. We are proud to claim the title of United States for you. For me, the stars that born, the United States for you.
Well done.
Wow,
That's
great, thank you.
So thank you, veterans, for sure. Parent-teacher conferences. We had another very successful parent-teacher conference session earlier in October for our high school and last week for our middle and elementary schools. Even in the virtual format, conferences are a great opportunity for us to share with parents the tremendous work their children are doing and the progress they have made. I've received many positive comments from teachers, parents, and administrators about the success of the virtual conferences. A sincere thank you to our teachers, administrators, and parents for their extra effort to collaborate together about the progress of our students. You know, we talked a lot about maybe education in the future might be a little bit different. And so these are one of the things that we've heard lots of really positive comments about the ability to connect with more families via virtually. So that might be something we continue to do in the future. Jaguar Excellence Awards for the month of October. I had the pleasure of emailing out 128 Jaguar Excellence Awards to our staff. This brings our total to 299 this year. Great work. Again, I'm just overwhelmed. Like we said before, we're on higher pace this year, even in the middle of a pandemic. So impressive job by our staff by recognizing and honoring their colleagues. Tonight you saw some things about remote learning. During our Bright Lights, the amazing work our staff is doing with our children during the remote learning platform. I have some Seesaw. You heard April Moran and Molly briefly talk about Seesaw. It's really a lot of our 4K to 2 teachers and our I-Core teachers. But I have some stats from Cormier, Pioneer, and Valley View in regards to the number of new posts. Pretty overwhelming. So this is starting from October 1st to now. Approximately 162,000 posts have been put on Seesaw since remote learning began. There have been on average 71 comments or 7,100 comments from staff each week during remote learning, so that feedback back to students. Again, this is 4K to second grade for the most part. There has been over 141,000 likes of student work, mainly by parents on Seesaw and teachers. We have approximately 1,700 engaged parents each week that have logged into Seesaw, again, grades K2 and I-Core. And parents have visited Seesaw over 112,000 times since we began remote learning. So some pretty impressive stats that we're able to get through Seesaw. An update on CARES grant funding donation. I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank Mary Kodoski, village president, and the village of Ashwaubenon for their generous support in supplying some of their unused federal CARES funding in amount of $10,000. As a result of this generous support, we were able to purchase 7 cordless electrostatic sprayers. So those guns that BSG uses after the day of the voting and we closed down the deal, they came in and sprayed. These 7 cordless electrostatic sprayers will be able to put 1 in each of our buildings, and our maintenance staff will be able to use them quickly. We can come in, spray a room, and Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like literally minutes.
Yeah.
And we could come back in and we'd be disinfected. So very excited about that opportunity. And again, thank you to the village for that, as well as 200 gallons of liquid hand sanitizer. So we want you to know that we continue to upgrade our PPE equipment and ways to protect our students and staff, even in the current back to in person. We certainly feel good about, these have already been ordered, correct, Keith?
Yep.
And are on their way, so we're excited about that. We also want to recognize Wisconsin Preschool Development Grant. The development of children and families use the preschool grant to provide the Ashwaubenon School with over 10,000 disposable face masks, 6,000 reusable child face masks, and 2,000 reusable adult-sized face masks. We also supplied 7 local daycares with similar items in smaller quantities, continuing our ongoing partnership with area daycare centers. Special thanks to Vern Doherty for delivering the daycare items this week. Thank you, Vern. All right, that's the end of my report.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
I've got one question for you, Ed or Jamie. Did the order of additional Chromebooks arrive?
So we did order, well, yes and no. So we were able to acquire 250. I can't remember if we talked about that, and that has given us, for the most part, we feel pretty good about providing one to all of our students who needed one. We're still leveraging parents and families that have said that they have a device. I just had a conversation with Acer and CDW yesterday, and our original order that we ordered in June, that was supposed to be here in August, they're now projecting 3 to 4 weeks out. So
Still pretty more
crazy. I know, it's crazy. So,
progress that they're projecting.
but they're actually giving us, they haven't said that before, so that is encouraging. And it is encouraging that our Acer rep specifically replied to me, because that wasn't something that we were getting either. So that was good. So we hopefully will see that. Like I said, in 3 to 4 weeks. The good news is, I think I talked about this last time. We did buy it's an Arduino robot that allows us to set up our Chromebooks. It records our keystrokes. So once we set up one Chromebook and record that process, we plug in 16 Chromebooks into the robot, and it starts doing 16 at a time. So we processed the 250 Chromebooks. They arrived Friday at about 12:30. We had them out to families on Tuesday morning. That would have taken us 2 to 3 weeks previously, because we only have 2 techs. So imagine. So the good news is when the other ones arrive, we will have them ready and available quickly. So that's
great.
Yeah.
Great work, Jim.
And that's all. That's Evan, Chris, Scott. That's them more than that. Believe me, that's more than them than me. So yeah. And our LMS teams. There's a lot of people.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, let's move on to the discussion presentation items. We got bylaw and policy update. First read, Kurt.
Yeah, so these again are first read. Hopefully you had a chance to look at them. A lot of them were very simple changes. We have a new Neola rep. He's a former superintendent, retired superintendent, and Jennifer and I had a chance to meet with him virtually. Really, I think he's going to do a nice job for us, going back and kind of went back through most of our policies and clean things up and try to make it consistent from one to the next. And so, again, most of the changes in tonight's first round of questions have been more grammatical and those types of changes. So, any questions for me?
We'll go out one.
Yep.
Okay, then this is a discussion item, so we will move on to our action items. Kurt, learning, in-person learning.
Sure. So I want to first take a moment to thank our teachers who presented tonight to share their journey with remote learning. On top of their current tremendous workload, they took time to put together presentations that all of you saw to help all of you and our community understand what remote learning looks like. I also want to address, and Molly did a little bit in her video, and so did Alyssa, a misconception from parents, I think, about the YouTube videos that students are watching at the elementary level. Like I said, I know Ms. Wrathley and Ms. VandenHegen talked about it, but these YouTube videos are part of our school approved, the ones that you guys approved as a school board from our Lucy Calkins units of study for reading and writing. And so these videos are taught by Columbia University, New York City literacy experts. They are the exact same people that came and spent a week with our staff, training our staff a couple of years ago. And so they are experts. The advantage of us using, it wasn't cheap, it was expensive. The advantage of us purchasing those videos, it allows our teachers then to spend more time one-on-one with our students or in small groups rather than spending that time creating videos for the next day. So I know that some parents have concerns about that, but again, these are experts in their field, and then our teachers follow up with, as Molly and Alyssa talked about.
Can I
Yep.
ask something? I just wanted to say that, like, I know they refer to and even said, like, people said YouTube videos, but like, you can't find those videos on YouTube. You have to pay a subscription. Like, it's a curriculum. It's
Right.
actually you know, it's a teaching tool. It's not something you can find on YouTube. Just to clarify that.
Thank you.
Sorry. I
No,
just wanted to
you're
make
great.
it clear.
I also want to take time to thank all of you, our amazing school board, for their tireless efforts to provide servant leadership to our community. There are no easy decisions, probably no right decisions, and just decisions based on what our board feels is best for our students and staff. So I applaud your efforts, I applaud your work, and thank you. As we progress forward, I'd also like to remind our community that we are always stronger together. And you heard that message come across from a couple of our teachers as well. Since last March, we have certainly seen and witnessed the value of teamwork. It is important no matter what decision is made tonight, we always remember that community ends with the word unity. And we're all in this together. I have mentioned it many times before, and I'll state it again now. Our teachers and entire staff are simply rocking it. We want to be in person. That has been very clear all along, and it will continue to be our goal. In-person learning is clearly better for our students, and quite frankly, much easier for our staff, as you witnessed tonight. Rightfully, we're all concerned for the mental health of our students and parents. I am equally concerned about the mental health of our staff. That's my job, to be concerned and make sure we're taking care of them. I am answering phone calls and emails late into the evening from staff members. That's part of my job, I get it, but our teachers are sending those emails or those phone calls with me 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I also know that there are pockets of instruction happening as late as 7, 8 o'clock at night, where our teachers are providing instruction even that late into the evening. There's simply no downtime for our staff. I want to be clear, I'm not complaining on behalf of our staff. I'm just simply sharing the facts. And I just want all of you to know how clearly hard they're really working. We all knew that there would be countless hours of work to get done at night and on the weekends when we went into this profession. I was a teacher for 15 years. Even without a pandemic, there's lots of nights, lots of weekends. We know that. However, COVID has taken that to a whole new level. And you can see that commitment tonight. Since we went to our current remote learning platform at the beginning of October, we have been busy working on a phased approach to get our students back in person safely. So I'm going to kind of just walk you quickly through those phases. Phase 1, we provided all of you, the school board, with science-based data guidance criteria that utilizes both local and Brown County data. For our community members listening into our board meeting, you can find this data on our website under our COVID dashboard. Unfortunately, our COVID dashboard does not look very good at this time. Our community burden rate is at red at 1,139, and our positivity rate is at 41.1%. Today, we had 35 staff absences, of which 25 are quarantined. We hope that that's different. We hope that we can change those numbers around. Phase 2, we started bringing, as you heard from our staff tonight, you heard from Mr. Ribbons, we started bringing in small groups of students a couple days a week who required specialized accommodations for their learning, specifically students who have an IEP or receive EL services. We also started the process of trying to recruit and secure more substitute teachers. In addition, as I mentioned before about on the CARES grant funding, we were able to purchase some electric static guns. So I want everyone to know, our community to know, you to know, that we haven't just sat back. We are constantly moving up with ways to be in person and ways of making it safer for our staff, ways of trying to secure more stops so that we can have the staffing in order for us to open up our doors. Phase 3, we began bringing in small groups of students who were receiving interventions in the area of reading, students who were at risk, specialized classrooms in the areas that cannot be mirrored in a remote setting like chemistry labs, technological education classes like welding and mechanical engineering on Wednesdays for the most part. As Mr. Ribbons mentioned earlier, I think he said somewhere around 200 students were in school today.
Over 200, yeah, at the high school.
All of these first 3 phases have already been happening in some form over the last several weeks. We also share this because we want you to know there's a vision, right? There's a direction in that we have a plan of trying to get our kids back. Phase 4, which would possibly begin on Monday, if the board approves tonight, would provide our ASH, our high school students, the opportunity to begin co-curricular activities like clubs and winter athletics. So that's one of the recommendations that you have in front of you tonight. So that would be phase 4. I've gotten questions from community members to say, how can you bring that in and not have in-person learning yet? Again, these are all in small groups. Mr. Singer has worked extremely hard to provide an opportunity with temperature checks and some more specialized type testing, possibly down the road. All of those things in very small controlled groups in order for us to get more. We clearly know we want to engage our kids. We clearly know we want to get kids in person. These things all are a plan to help us get to that point. Okay. And then phase 5, which would possibly begin on Monday, November 30th, was bringing our students in person back in some type of hybrid fashion or style. Okay. So I kind of walk you through what we've done over the last 5 weeks. At the school board meeting on Monday, November 2nd, all of you asked me and our administrative team to present impossible instructional learning models at tonight's meeting. These in-person instructional models would possibly begin on Monday, November 30th, based on our current COVID data guidelines. Again, our numbers continue to be extremely high, and the risk of transmission in the community continues to be high. Hopefully, we can turn that around. Under recommendation number 1, you will find 3 instructional learning models that were created by the Ashwaubenon School District administrative team. Also listed are the pros and cons of each model. All of these models will take a tremendous amount of work to be done by our staff over the next couple of weeks to implement in a safe manner. We are up to the task, there's no doubt. We have a tremendous staff, tremendous group of people, and we do great work to get it done. But we know it's going to take a tremendous effort. I'll give an example. If we start to cohort our elementary students into groups, it doesn't work out evenly, right? And so let's say, for example, in Mrs. Wraithley's class, maybe the letters that we split the high school up, she ends up with 3 one day and 9 the other day, or 12 the other day, right? So we still have some adjusting to do to make sure that families are all on the same days, but making sure that we are trying to create equitable class sizes to maintain social distancing. So just so you know, there's a lot of work that has to go in starting tomorrow based on what is talked about tonight. With each model, though, I'm going to be honest, comes benefits and drawbacks. We all agree that having students in person is what's best for our students. We also know that providing our students with high quality instruction is essential to the learning. With the 3 models presented to all of you, the one major benefit is that our students are coming back in some form of in-person. The drawback is that we would not be providing as many days of instruction as we currently are in the remote setting. So you heard about our teachers talking about having 4 solid days of instruction at the elementary level. So you as a board, we as an administrative team, we had to balance the weight and the pros and cons of both, right? Of each model. Balance of having in-person versus maybe losing a day of instruction because of that.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yep.
The elementary level, why do we lose an extra day?
So what happens is, there's no way, it's very challenging for us to engage kids at the elementary level versus at 6-12, because those kids are going to be able to work more independently. And so if we're not guiding them, so for example, if I am teaching my green kids on Monday, pretty challenging to have our yellow kids getting direct instruction like they are now from us, right? Okay. And so they would only end up, depending on how many days you choose, the one model chooses 1 day, then we would still have 2 days of remote, so we'd still have 3 of the 4 days of instruction. But if you're on green and Jay's on yellow, you're only gonna get 1 of the 2 days in-person instruction. Does that make sense? So if I have yellow kids on Tuesday and green kids on Monday, you're gonna get the instruction Monday, but you're not gonna get anything. You're gonna get some independent work, we're gonna give you things to work on, but you're not gonna have that direct instruction from the teacher like you would have in our remote setting.
So you wouldn't have like a Google Meet, and you wouldn't probably learn anything. It would be more of a resource day, more of a kind of working on reading skills, or read things that they could kind of do. But it certainly would not be as powerful of a curriculum day. Would that be the way to say it? Than it would be, because you can't ask a teacher to teach all day, but at the same time have this be able to also do online at the same time, right? Because there's only how many hours in a day. So that one day, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
So what you're saying is, and I'm not in the classroom.
Yeah.
It's not possible to have half the class in the classroom and have a Zoom or a Google Meets taking place at the same time. So those kids that are at home are watching the same thing that the teacher's presenting to those in person.
Correct. We don't
That's
have.
not possible.
Well, I can.
Jamie, go ahead.
So it is possible to a certain extent, but the age appropriateness of that, it gets really hard. I mean, that you'll see most of our elementary school teachers talked about the bread and butter of what they do with that small group. To have more than 2 or 3 first grade students in a meet and also trying to manage the other half in person would be a pretty difficult task.
Okay.
Now, as you get up to 6 through 12, no doubt their attention span, their ability is way different. But to ask that of 6 to 9-year-olds is a difficult thing.
And they're also going to be in daycare.
Correct.
Right.
You know,
So it
mom and
might
dad
be
are
in their
working.
location.
So to hop on to a Zoom in the daycare.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's the way, right? You have to balance, all good question. You have to balance remote right now, kids are able to get that instruction Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, let's say in a week, green students are in school in person on Monday, and then they're in school on Thursday. If we would do 2 days a week in person, then they would not have direct instruction the other 2 days on Tuesday and Friday. They would have independent work. So they're gonna lose 2 days of direct instruction. We're still gonna give them work, still gonna do those things, but they're still gonna lose. That was really the email that all of you received from one of our literacy teachers. That was her concern, right? But you then as a board have to evaluate, is the in-person that outweighs that loss of instruction time? You know, is a 1 day in person worth losing a day of instruction? We still get 3 days versus having 4 days of remote. Again, that's the challenge we all have, right? In the decision. Like I said before, there are no right answers, there are no wrong answers, there are just decisions, right? Just answers to make. And so I think that that's the piece that you guys are gonna have to weigh in on all those models. Is it worth losing a little bit of instruction or some instruction to gain the in-person time because of the valuable piece that brings for our students that all of you might feel? Okay. Yeah, Mike?
So can you explain the Wednesdays a little bit? It seems like there are students that are coming in. Teachers are available also all day, you know, Google Meets, it seems like, and they're able to get on. Can you just explain Wednesdays a little bit?
Sure. So it goes back to those phases. We really wanted to start small and try it to make sure it's working well, right? And so we have some very strict laws to follow in the area of special education. And there are districts in the state of Wisconsin who are not doing very well in that area and are being audited by the DPI. Under Tammy's leadership, we really have done a wonderful job of making sure that we're meeting our individual needs students. So that's where we started, Mike. So our Wednesdays first started, actually it's more than Wednesdays for special ed, and for some, almost every day. And Jenny knows because she's subbed in some of those areas, or EL services. So that's where it started. Starting with that population of kids, because we knew by law we had to really meet these individual needs. So there it grew to trying to, for those kids, as Alyssa was talking about, and other students, or Colleen and others are talking about, where kids weren't engaged. Some of our kids we thought were at risk, struggling, not being engaged, we were bringing those kids in and trying to engage them. Maybe they were having internet connection issues. Maybe they were having just struggles at home and needing a quiet place to work. And so that's where it originally started, was trying to provide that service to kids. So then from there, teachers started asking Mr. Evans and all the principals, hey, I could really use some time with my chemistry students, or I could really use some time with my welding students. And so that's where it kind of grew from. We tried to start small and bring them in slowly so that we were making sure we're meeting everyone's needs and doing it in a safe way. You know, as Mr. Evans mentioned tonight, we have 200 kids in high school today, but there was no more than 5 kids ever in one class. Again, trying to practice all this stuff. So that's how it started. And then it slowly has grown from there. So does that help?
Yep.
So I'd really like to see us get into school. And I think the best way to start would be slow. And if we went with that first plan for the first week and see how it goes, with the intention of the second week looking at that second model and getting the kids into school 2 days a week and through Christmas break. And you had talked about the 20th and 21st.
21st, 22nd.
21st, 22nd.
Yeah, we talked about, as administrative team, nothing against those days, but those are challenging days in a normal year, in days before Christmas. So we thought it would be most beneficial the Monday and Tuesday after that last week before winter break, is we would make those 2 days remote learning. So the 21st and 22nd. And then we would run, suggestion, or what Jay's suggestion is, we would run Model 1 that we presented to all of you for the first week from the 30th until November, what would that be, the 4th? Or December 4th, I mean. And then the next 2 weeks, Model 2 is what your suggestion, Jay.
Gordon, I think I derailed the conversation here with my question. You were talking about Model 1, and I can let you
That's
continue
okay.
with 2 and 3.
Sure, I mean, I can elaborate for everyone else. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Sure. So Model 1 is, and we really try to be cognizant on our team of making sure that we are consistent for parents, that it was the same for all the way through. A student in 3rd grade, and I had a student in 6th grade, they would be on the same schedule. And so we tried to be cognizant of that for families. And so what happens in Model 1 is all students, 4K to 12, are split into the green and yellow groups. We did that purposely because our numbers are so high. We're concerned about having 21, 22 kids in an elementary classroom. And so we wanted to split that up so that they would have 10 or 11 kids in a classroom versus having that many. On Mondays, the green group would come and the yellow group would be remote. On Tuesdays, the yellow would be in person. No, I'm sorry, I messed up. Both green and yellow would be remote on Monday. Tuesdays, yellow would be in person, green would be remote. So basically, the yellow group would be in person on Tuesdays, and the green group would be in person on Thursdays, and then it would be remote the rest of the week. Okay? That's what Jay is suggesting for the first week back, to start as a trial to get us back into in-person learning. Model 2 then just expands that to another day. So Model 2 has green in person on Mondays and Thursdays, yellow in person on Tuesdays and Fridays. And so every student would have 2 days in person. Some might have 3, depending on whether or not they came in on Wednesdays for a portion of the day. Also know that the Wednesdays, for the most part, are not all day. They are like 2-hour blocks. And so like Mr. Fisher might do a chemistry lab in his class, where the welding kids might come in for an hour block or 2-hour blocks. Most of these are, even for our special needs students, these are small 2-hour blocks typically. Sometimes a little bit longer, but typically smaller blocks of time.
Mrs. Woodsek wanted me to let you know there were 75 students at Parkview today. So
75 kids
yep.
at Parkview. And then Model 3, I'm not really in favor of. We had lots of discussion about it. It's basically a version of both models. It's the elementary would be back to the 1 day a week in order to retain the 3 days of instruction. That's really where our elementary staff is concerned about, is the amount of instruction time lost. A little concerned about that. Secondary would be the same as Model 2. So it's a combination of both of them. And as Jay mentioned, this is a decision that's up to you guys. You could do a version of 2, right? And look at a combination of all of that too as well. So again, I have to say, I want kids in person. I think kids should be in person. But I'm also very concerned about where our numbers are at. I wish our community numbers were coming down. I wish that they were in a different place. I wish that we had all kids in every single day, without a doubt. But I'm also concerned about safety of our kids. And I think I would be not right in my job to always advocate for the safety of kids and staff. And so I'm cautious, but obviously whatever you guys decide, we will do whatever you ask us to do, and we'll do it well. I guarantee you.
So, can I say something?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so may or may not be popular. I just feel like I have to say what my heart is telling me to say. And I feel like at this time, we sometimes look to our leaders and our officials to make a decision that makes sense and leads us, right? That's why we have leaders. So I feel like I have to apologize in advance because I don't feel like I can be that leader, because I am incredibly torn about this decision and I have strong feelings on both sides. But I just feel like I need to say my piece, and then, because don't elect me. It's okay. Okay, so I know we want kids back in school. I want kids back in school desperately. I'm just having this little ringing in my head that I'm struggling with, because we agreed to these guidelines and then the numbers keep going up, and
We didn't agree to the guidelines. Those are their guidelines.
No, they're guidelines, but we agreed to use them as a guideline. They're
Okay.
flexible,
Correct.
absolutely flexible, but that's why they're not gating, but they're a
Correct.
guideline, right? So we accepted those. So that's all I'm saying about that. It's in my head. I do think it would be valuable for kids to be in school. I just think I would caution that, that even getting them in school, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't be, I think it's valuable, and I think there are kids that are hurting and need to see their teacher and be in person, and I do believe that. But I also would caution that what kids want and what we all want, what we're striving for when we talk about school is, we want recess, and we want high fives, and we want to hug our teacher at the end of the day. And the high school kids want sports, and they want dances, and they want football games and basketball games and musicals. And so even when they were hybrid, I can speak to the high school kids, it didn't feel, it's a loss. So I just feel like I have to honor the fact that many people I just can only explain it as they're sad. Everybody's sad. This is just it's just a sad time. So I don't think that we can make, I know we're not gonna be able to make a right decision. Not everybody's gonna be happy. And I've been struggling a lot, because I like to do things to make people happy and you just can't. If I was gonna give my input, the only thing I would say is that if we do feel strongly about having those kids, for the mental health piece of being in person, I would agree with starting off very slow, just the 1 day a week. I think jumping into Model 2 right away would be difficult, not only on the littles, on the bigs too, but especially in the curriculum piece for the younger kids. So if that is where people are going, and when I look at these choices to go back, I would look at what the district recommended, starting off slow with Model 1 and possibly that last week. If those first 2 weeks of Model 1 are going okay, then jumping into the second model, which is what I think was the district recommendation that I kind of saw. But anyway, so sorry for getting, it's from my heart, that's how I feel. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Well, looking at the subject, I was out on the CDC.gov website today. Just trying to learn more about the CDC, guidelines. And there's tons of information out there, as you can imagine. But they had a section in there that said that, for parents when they're, where the kids are planning on going back to school, they said, well, one thing is that parents should do, is review your school's plans to reduce risk. And so, they had 4 different items out there. The first one was promoting behaviors that reduce, the spread. Social distancing, washing hands, face coverings, everyone kind of knows all that. But that's, what they're suggesting. And I think, when we were in person for a while, I think, like you said many times, Charlotte did an outstanding job with that. And then the second one was maintain a healthy environment. You kind of mentioned this today too. Cleaning, proper ventilation, et cetera. That new cleaning equipment that you talked about, having, I don't know how many gallons of hand sanitizer.
Well, we have a lot.
A lot. So I think we're on the mark there as well. And then they also say maintain healthy, operations, and they talked about staggering schedules. And this is, very similar to the model, 1, 2, I don't know if anyone likes 3, but, it's different models that we have out there. So I think we're on track with that too. They also talked about preparing for when someone gets sick. You kind of mentioned this a little bit. I think we, can maybe do a little bit more work in that area, maybe. But I think it's a really good start for us. For me, we gotta have kids that are safe, right? We gotta feed them. We have to have teachers in the classroom, and we have to have the cleaning crews coming in either throughout the day or after, the day, et cetera. So, and I think we do it really well. We have to have a plan for key staff. The reason why we closed down in September was, because at the time we had 29 staff members out in different ways, obviously. But we didn't really have I don't think anyone could have expected to have that many people out in a time. So it was very difficult to, staff that. And the food, the lunch staff, wasn't available. So you can't have kids in school if you're not able to feed them. So
Certainly don't want the superintendent feeding.
No,
not every day.
No, I don't know. I'm very proud of all you, Brian as well, and the rest of the crew that stepped up to Keith's mom.
Jennifer.
No, Jennifer as well. Everyone that stepped up to feed the kids, but I like to see a little bit more around that because you talked today about we went to online learning because we had 29 staff members out. You mentioned today we have 35 roughly that we're out. So I would like to, before we go back into in school learning, just make sure that we kind of shore that up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But from the CDC guidelines, it looks like we're doing everything right as far as the 4 options that they told parents to kind of look at. I think we're doing everything right in those areas. So I'm very proud of that. I do agree that Governor Evers was, on the TV the other day. He was talking about Executive Order 94. I don't know how that it affects us or doesn't affect us. He was sort of talking more generalities than specifics.
I was texting with a lot of people last night because I was there listening at 6:05, right? And hoping that he would, but he never really stated schools, right? And I was hoping he would go one way or another, either to say we shouldn't be in session or it's okay to be in session. He never said it either way, right? And so I was waiting every word to hear him say one's strong one way or another. He never really said any, it was more generalization of advisories of what he was giving, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else listened or heard something different than what I did.
I think we have to kind of better understand that as well. I am, obviously, I voted nay, in the last meeting. I am for, kids getting back into school. I'm okay with a phased approach, we want more of a logical phase, go from phase 1 to, and this is our plan to get to, model 2. Start off with model 1 and at least initially get to model 2.
Yeah, I think if you look at it long-term, and back to my phases, I would say that it makes sense at whatever point we decide to start with model 1, then go to model 2. Then I would say we would go back to our reopening plan and we would go back to what we did last September, right? If we felt we're in that place at that point, why would we not go to that model at that point, right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. So I think, the board, agreed that, we're gonna, stay in online learning, until, November 30th. I guess in that time frame, I would, suggest that we kind of shore up our plans as far as, key staff being, out, make sure that we have contingency plans for, the key staff members. You kind of talked about that a little bit already, for certain ones, but just kind of going through the list, and I'm sure it was not an all-inclusive list, I'm sure. So, and then seeing what the governor, executive order 94 really means for us. And then we talked about the concerns from the teachers, just kind of making sure that we're reacting to that and mitigating that, as best as we can. For sure. So with that, that's thanks.
Right. So building on what Paul said, and whether this is popular or not, I am somewhat less worried about kids than I am about our staff. We were talking briefly before the meeting that I haven't seen any data or articles or information to prove that you're passing the virus through schools. There's just nothing out there. So the bigger issue is the community spread. And that's the parents that are either going to the grocery store or coming into other establishments or even coming into the school. So it's back to a staffing issue. And if we short that up, and I think we do need to continue to look at using all of our staff in the best way that we possibly can. And if that means shifting their teaching skills from one to in, if we do have absences, that would be an important thing. And I think it then would be important to build on that with the changes that the county health department has enacted, that the rapid testing that is available, if a staff member or one of the kitchen staff have COVID-like symptoms or fears that they've come in contact with someone, they should be directed immediately to testing. And if they come back negative, they should be back to work. They shouldn't be home for 10 days or 14 days as previous with CDC recommendations. They're not laws, they're recommendations. And we should try to limit that as much as we possibly can.
And in fairness to the teachers, O'Brien, and we talked about
And
this
that was the
before.
policy.
That was policy.
Yep.
They were following the policy. They were, until they got tested. Now, Brown County Health has just changed that.
Just changed it.
So now, because, right, there was a push, only test if you had symptoms. And so if I had contact with Brian, just sort of run under the same scenario, Brian tested positive, I had contact with Brian, the Brown County Health Department and others were saying, don't get tested until you have symptoms.
Right.
And so then you're out that 10 to 14 days. Now Brown County Health is saying, if I have contact with Brian, I should go get tested whether I have symptoms or not. And so that obviously is going to speed up that process. Possibly if I turn out to be negative, I could be back into school quicker.
Correct. That's the point. And communicate that with staff so that everyone knows. And in fact, I think communicate that with parents as well. Because parents are coming in contact with more people probably than our staff is, out in their work days and wherever they may be. So they should know that as well, that change took place and that speeds up the time period to get back to normal. And then I guess the only other, to build on that as well, because people will start talking about it soon, I would think, that European Union countries that have gone back into shutdown mode, that left their schools open as essential because of, a lot of it is because of social and emotional issues and the students falling behind. That while there's nothing concrete yet that says that that's a good decision or a bad decision, I think it's going to be important for us to watch that. But those major industrial countries in Europe made that decision ahead of time to go that route, and that's where I think there is some things to watch and learn there. And then lastly is just to make sure that our message is consistent for parents, so that we're not changing it every week or every other week. We're going and then we're not going, and we're open and then we're closed. Try to give some parents some consistency, and I think it also gives, especially for our high school kids that want to be involved in extracurricular activities, it gives them some consistency in knowing that, hey, if we start a program, we're going to be able to continue with it. Because I'd like to see that happen for our high school students.
And I think we can learn from other schools, right? And so it's hard to predict that, right? And so I'll give you an example of not to throw my colleague and friend under the bus, but at West Superior, they have this happening, right? Because they're in, right? And so, Hemlock Creek School is in, next thing you know, these two classrooms are out, right? So we're gonna have pockets of that, Brian, there's no way for us to control that, right? And so if we have a positive test in Mrs. VandenHegen's class at Pioneer, we're gonna shut that classroom down for 2 weeks, right? And then bring those kids back when it's safe, where everyone's been tested or feel like we're good to bring everyone back. And so I just want to be fair to everyone, to all of you, and that we might have to shut down a school, we might have to shut down a classroom because of a huge outbreak there, right? That's a little bit out of our control, right? And we do the best we can. But I don't want everyone to feel like we can just, because today, I think West Superior had 490 or 485 students out.
501.
And 39 staff. So there is going to be a little bit of this, Brian, and we're going to try to be as consistent as we can. But I think we can learn from Wrightstown and West Superior that they are like this because of that, right? It's just no way to control that, and so we'll do the best we can.
Mm-hmm. So the teachers that are quarantined right now, or staff members that are quarantined right now, have they been tested?
Well, again, that just changed this week, right? So I don't know that for sure, Jay, to be honest with you.
So is that something that we're gonna recommend that they do, that they get tested?
We're gonna follow whatever the Brown County Health is, and that's now Brown County Health. Jody Smith, who's our person, just shared with me today, that is gonna change. Yeah.
So, again, kind of skipping ahead, we have athletics that are doing weekly tests for the quick. Is that something we can do, with staff?
Oh, with staff?
That testing, the quick results, if they've been in contact.
Yeah, so what's happening, CISA, I think I talked to you guys a little bit about this. CISAs have now started it's not a rapid test because I don't want people to feel like it's a lower test. It's the same test, but we're able to get the results in 24 hours. And so CISA 6 started that. And so now it's starting to get into CISA 7. West Superior is a whole site, so we could send our staff to West Superior to get that test if we decide to move forward with it. Know that test costs $100 a staff. Now, I talked to a couple of you about, well, if we're paying subs $200 a day, and we saved a day, we already saved money, right? I mean, so certainly there's advantages to it as well. And so, you know, if we get our staff, because we always feel our staff in front of our kids is the most beneficial, right? That's why one of the benefits of remote learning is that we have consistent our staff in front of them and not a sum, right? Obviously, all of us agree, we hire good people, we have talented staff, we want them in front of the kids, right? So.
Michelle, you out there?
Yep. I guess I don't have too much more to add except that I'm just concerned about the consistency and like we've just said about the numbers with Westy Pier and having that many students out and not being able to have good instruction when they're out. I support the gating, the decision-making criteria, and I do not support any of these models.
Mike, anything?
Yeah, I like to kind of, I agree with what Brian said. I did research, I didn't see anything where it's being transmitted in with the kids. And I think New York Times, The Atlantic, they all had articles that I saw that they did surveys and tests, and that has been shown. I want also too, I just want to point to our own polls that we took, and especially highlighting the 4K through 5th grade. It showed that 64% are comfortable with students safely in regards to in-person learning. And that was 10% that had the 3 that was kind of in between, 25% not comfortable. I'm reading that right. And that was also how comfortable are you in having your child attend school in person at this time? That's a large number. And that dropped down a little bit as you get to the 6th through 12th. And you know, kind of again, pushing for that 4K through 5th grade group that's out there. You know, it's a little bit harder to do some of the models that the middle school and the high school is doing it as far as what they're saying. And some of them are getting just a little bit, well, I'm gonna rephrase that. They're getting teaching and the teachers are doing what they're doing. They're putting a lot of time into those, and some of the students are staying with it, some of them are not, and I think the teachers would say that you know, and that's why you're bringing in some of those students that are in there. And I can relate to as a parent, and again, there's a large group. I have 3 kids, so there's a large group that I hear from all the time, and the kids aren't always finishing these assignments. You know, I can relate to my own son. You know, throwing him under the bus. I guess that's why I'm in this role. But you know, last week was end of report cards. I asked him, "Got everything done?" He got everything done. And he's like, "Yep. Okay, well, show us." And we went in there, and there's 6 assignments he didn't do, and they were pretty big. So that we stayed up till like midnight, you know, trying to finish these up. And you know, that was a conversation we had with the teacher that not all the kids are actually finishing those up. There's just not. It's hard to know. If they're actually finishing those assignments. And, you know, and I really think that group, that 4K through 5th, they're gonna fall behind more and more and more. Not every student can take their kids to, you know, a tutor. Not every kid can take them to get extra math help. And I know teachers are staying up late, but they can't, it's hard to do that for every single student all the time. And especially if there is households that maybe not as engaged, it's hard to always stay with that. You know, I would definitely agree, you know, going with what Jay had recommended. We see several schools I've been in, Kakana's been in all year long. You know, they've worked through it. You know, those are models we can look at as far as how are they going through those ups and downs of those models that are there. And you have plans that you've been put in place with safety, with subs. You know, at the beginning of the year, we all took a poll and we said, you know, do you want to go virtual or do you want to go in person? And we're still staying with that group that wants to go in person. The people that are virtual are still staying virtual, but there is that group that want that, and there are students that want that. And so I would definitely concur with going with what Jay had recommended.
So whatever we decide is going to be, you know, it's obviously a difficult decision. It's something that, you know, it can be ever changing, depending upon what happens in the future. we've put in place right now, we may have to put the brakes on if things are still out of control at the end of November.
So thank you for saying that, Jim. I mean, we just don't know. There's disadvantages and advantages. The disadvantage of making a decision on November 11th for a date of November 30th is challenging, right? It's kind of your point. And we don't know what it's gonna look like at that point. So I think we have to be thinking, realistically to say, okay, if it's great, if it's staying, then we should stay consistent with what you guys decide on. If it goes really bad, or maybe even someone makes a decision higher than us, we don't know what that's going to look like. So I guess I would caution you on just saying, understand that there could be change, and we don't know that. And it could be better, right? That's always our hope, right?
Are we defining new decision-making criteria so that we're gonna define what really bad is? I mean, it's pretty bad, it's getting pretty bad, right? I think it's pretty bad right now, so I don't know. I think others have a very different idea of what pretty bad is.
Well, and Michelle, thank you for saying that. I said that at the beginning of my comments, right? That the numbers aren't good, right? And they're high, and I'm concerned about that. And I'm always concerned about student safety and staff safety. That's going to be and will always be my number one priority. Whether it's popular or not popular, that's my stance, and I will not err from that either way, or waver from that either way. That is my number one priority. I don't want anyone to get seriously hurt on my watch, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And so I am concerned about the numbers, but I also understand where parents are coming from, or others. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. We're not gonna make people happy either way, right? We have gotten lots of emails from parents and phone calls and conversation. I had one in person today with a parent of wanting ours to be in person. But if you make a decision to go in person, know that the other people who are happy that we're in remote are gonna come out of the woodwork to be very angry too. So we're just not gonna make anyone happy no matter what decision we make. And that gets back to my comment earlier. I'm not sure there's a right decision or a wrong decision. There's just decisions that have to be made.
And we still have the virtual option for those parents, and even those staff members that are in maybe more compromised positions. And we do have the in-person options that we can offer, which there were a high percentage of parents that were asking for that. So
The advantage of the 1 day a week, and I'm not trying to push you guys anyway, the advantage of the 1 day a week is that we maintain the 3 days of instruction at the elementary level. And some of our parents who would choose and be upset with losing a couple days of instruction might choose to go to a CELUS, which is the elementary online program, which our numbers are high. So that's gonna have a cost, because we're gonna have to either hire additional staff if all of a sudden we end up with all these high numbers. The last thing I wanna do, and some other districts are considering, which I think is a terrible idea, I'm just gonna be upfront with you, is adjusting classes. We absolutely do not wanna go there. And so what they're doing is, if all of a sudden we have 20 fifth graders want to leave and go to online, move a fifth grade teacher to do that, but then you have to adjust. So all the kids who had that face-to-face person, with that person for the first month, now lost. So in your example, Brian, with Connor and Mr. Drees, I'd hate to see those kids who made that connection with Mr. Drees now not have Mr. Drees, but have Mr. Kavich, because we had to adjust, and we moved Mr. Drees to remote. I don't think that's a good plan at all, because our goal is obviously to get back everyone eventually. And so all of a sudden we're shifting kids back and forth. And we talk about continuity of education, that would totally go against that. So
one thing I want to add, Brian, clarify what you said. We gave parents the choice to go virtual or not. We did not give staff that choice. Staff did not have the option to be a virtual teacher versus a classroom teacher. If you were a second grade teacher last year, you're a second grade teacher this year. You didn't have the option to be virtual. So there are some staff members who have concerns, who I think would love to choose virtual, but we don't have that option if we have kids face to face. We can't set the staff up that way.
So if you have Okay, so you have a second grade for 25 kids that need a second grade teacher, virtual. How are you deciding?
So what we did, we took
Virtual teacher?
the non-classroom teachers, some of the support people at the elementary area, the lit support and some of those staff members, and we made those our virtual teachers.
Okay.
Because if we would have taken a second grade teacher away and had them be virtual, then our class sizes in second grade would have grown, and all of the things we were trying to do our best at distance wouldn't have worked. So we need to keep the same number of planned second grade sections and have someone else teach the second graders who chose virtual, so we could minimize those class sizes.
Got it, okay.
I just want to be clear, because I know our staff members would love it if we could offer that, and that's not something we were able to offer.
Okay.
And those virtual classes, if I'm not wrong, I mean, they are pretty decent sized numbers.
big.
So if you have an exodus of 30% more of your second graders going to virtual, then that teacher that's doing it probably can't. I mean, I know there is a teacher at the high school who I think told me they have over 100 virtual kids they're juggling. That's a lot of kids. So that number could be problematic, like when you look at the shifting, which is why I would say if this is really what is going to happen, then having the 1 day a week at least, I think having at least 3 days of curriculum instruction at that elementary level for those parents that are uncomfortable only sending their child 1 day, or if they weren't sending their child that 1 day, at least they're still getting 3 days of curriculum. May not have that exodus of people saying, well, now I'm gonna, I don't know. I honestly.
I just want to clarify, Jenny, you said it, but I think it needs to be said strong. Those teachers who are teaching virtual at the elementary in particular have a big load.
A handful.
They have a
We sent for over 50 kids in fifth grade.
So those virtual teachers have a very tough job and are doing an awesome job with that. And we appreciate how hard they're working, but absolutely, they have a big load, and that goes all the way from elementary through the high school. The ones who are taking the virtual on are really working hard and have a big group of kids.
Also, too, I think our core indicators, again, it's brought up that we vote on it, we didn't vote on it. But I think our core indicator should be looking at our local, that should be one of our core ones, our local. And, that should be tracked. Because I think we look at those numbers on there, we can be scared all the time. But, if we look at also the businesses that are out there, including the business I'm with, they're all planning now to start going back in. I got my email yesterday as far as plans to start going back in.
Well, I know there are big businesses in the area that are not planning to do that too. So I think it may depend on the business that you're.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the person, but there are businesses that are planning to bring that are starting to plan it anyways, to bring them back in. So I said, I think we can look at that board and be scared of it all day long. It doesn't help. Yeah, I think we need to look at our numbers. What's going on with our numbers? There's school districts, that's what they're doing. They're looking at those numbers first and then looking at the other ones as sub ones.
What do you mean by our numbers? Are you saying Brown County numbers aren't our numbers?
Ashwaubenon.
Dashboard?
Yeah, the Ashwaubenon board for students and kids.
Okay.
And then if you knew recommendations from Brown County, and if we get people tested that are quarantined right now, 75% of them come back and don't have COVID, that brings that number down drastically for our staff.
Can I ask a question? Does someone know exactly I'm not privy to, I don't know exactly what the new recommendations said. I just was curious. I knew it had changed, but I didn't, is it that they need to be tested? Because I know there were some teachers that were close contacts, didn't have symptoms, but did get tested just because they chose to get tested. But they still had to stay out the 14 days just in case a symptom popped up. Has that piece of it changed as well as that they have to get tested? Does anybody know?
I don't know that, Jenny.
Okay.
So what Jody Smith, who is our expert, right?
Yeah.
Of doing our contract tracing for staff, shared with me today is that in the past, if I was a close contact with you and you tested positive, I had to have symptoms to go get tested. Now they're saying they want you to go get tested right away. And so that obviously, if I came back negative, back into school and to work quicker, right?
Okay,
Versus necessarily, I don't know if they're still telling you to stay out to 14 days.
yeah,
That's the key, and I think
That's
that's
the key,
the answer
isn't
we have to have is
Yeah.
when
I'm
you
pretty
test
sure you're still
negative.
supposed to stay out because of the gestation of the virus.
Correct.
Or you can not
E-
go,
e-
you
even
can
if
test
you
here
test
today
negative?
and test positive tomorrow. Right?
Even if you test negative.
Even if you test negative today, that's good for today, it's not good for tomorrow.
Correct.
And you can be
Yes.
exposed yesterday and it could be 10 days before you test positive.
So we maybe need to research that and
We will.
understand
Yeah,
exactly
yeah, for
what
sure.
the date is, but it did change in the last day or so, and new recommendations.
That for sure changed. Now, again, I don't.
So if we can get people back sooner, we definitely will.
Yeah.
We also work with the medical community on that, so if I'm getting tested and I go to my personal doctor, and the doctor says you should stay home, we're not gonna overrule a medical professional.
Correct.
We're trying to work with them, so we're all being consistent, but what we found is that not always consistent.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Okay, we got any other discussion on this?
well, so just to be clear on like what I mean, are we making a decision on this now?
We can.
I thought that's what we.
Yep.
We're taking action, correct, is that what we're doing? So I guess I'm wondering like, what is the,
Well,
there's all these choices before us, so is it what the district is recommending, which is doing this model one, which would be 1 day a week for the first 2 weeks back, and then that third week back, we would try the model two? I mean, that's what, I'm just reading what
we
is
can
here.
do that, I mean, we definitely make
Unless
some,
something changes in the world
I
that
mean, we need a motion on it.
causes us to do something. So I'll make the motion to follow the recommendation from the administration. If you'd like me to read it, otherwise Jennifer, it's the statement under recommendation number 1, the last paragraph, that we would recommend model 1 to be used the week of November 30th through December 11th. And then for the week December 14th through the 18th, we would move to model 2. And then the 21st and 22nd of December would be remote learning. With the caveat that, it could change tomorrow. But right now, let's plan to go that route is my motion.
I second that. All you second? Okay. Any other discussion? Let's do a voice vote.
Bandy Creek, aye.
Johnson, aye.
Van Len and I.
Fiskachel, aye.
Kerrigan, nay.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Okay, let's move on to the second part. That would be the athletics component.
So again, as I talked about earlier, this would be something we would consider if we were in person, which has just been voted on, that we would start with our phase 4, which would involve winter athletics and our opportunity for our coaches. Nick has a very good protocol set up in place to monitor and to screen our students or test our students, and then have them in small groups. Our girls' basketball, and Nick helped me with that, I think, and one other sports would start Monday,
Boys hockey,
boys hockey, and then the other winter sports would start the following Monday.
correct. Boys swim, boys basketball, and wrestling.
And that total, how many total students did that involve?
We have about 100, and including our dance team that's we practice 2 to 3 times a week, about 155 athletes, student athletes, and then 15 to 20 coaches that we potentially include in that surveillance testing that's we're working on Prevail with.
I think these, are all in small groups as far as, practicing. There's not, big groups that are doing it. These are individual, maybe 5, athletes in one group, or how's that work?
Well, coaches are, as we talk about this with our colleagues and fellow ADs, are, trying to balance if there is a positive and that contact tracing. So the small group work would be, let's work on keeping kids in pods so we can identify who's working together, and then slowly moving towards fuller team type practices where there would be that potential 5-on-5 in basketball. Again, the governor's mandate is that we're all wearing masks, and that holds true on the basketball court, on the hockey rink, in the dance gym when they're practicing, to wrestling. So the masks are required, and until that order is lifted, and then certainly that's a discussion that we'll have internally, as is with our athletes as they compete, potentially. And I think that's what a lot of conferences are doing with masks. Even if the governor changes that mask order, they're saying, nope, we're going to play with masks on this year because that's best practice, or what they feel is best practice. So a slow transition into more getting ready for competition type activity.
And then are you anticipating fans in the stands, or just kind of all?
Right now, we're trying to stay consistent with the other teams that are progressing towards playing. So we're looking at December, no fans, no spectators, essential people only. And then as we get through December, we'll evaluate and see how things are going. And if at the beginning of January, we think we can handle 2 or 3 spectators per player or coach, then we'll move in that direction. But to start, any competition would be no fans. And that's consistent with what Pulaski's doing, Notre Dame is going to do. The group that's anticipating being able to go is saying no fans to start.
Okay, that's what I expected you to say.
Can I ask a question about the dates? So it says that they would possibly, for girls and boys, basketball and girls hockey would be November 16th. So we're like, from what we've just even voted to do, we wouldn't even be in school yet at that point. So I just have a question about how, I just wonder how, we said the schools are staying closed to this point. I'm just thinking date-wise, how people would feel saying, well, we're not in school right now, but you're gonna have sports practice. Like, it's one thing I was thinking to have, the Jaguar, like performance training, weightlifting stuff, that's one thing. It's almost like the Wednesdays, right? Giving kids an opportunity to come have that, like that welding class or that thing that they can't do at home. That makes a lot of sense to me. I just wanted to kind of ask.
Great question. I've worked with our coaches to say, hey, these first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks are they're practices, but they're voluntary. They're not going to be required. So if a student athlete or family isn't comfortable because, hey, that we're not in person, we're not going to hold that against somebody that wants to try to join the team on November 30th. And then most of any competition that's scheduled is not until late in that first week of December 4th, December 5th. So all those teams will have the opportunity to get their minimum number of practices in. And even if someone joins late, they're not going to hold that against that individual.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't allow them to get their practice numbers in a safe environment, safe way, then for those high school students, they lose a season.
There's nowhere to move the winter season. Correct. The winter season is
can't do it in summer.
November to February, and the WIA has said they're make the best decision based on what your community wants to do. So it won't look the same. Wrestling won't wrestle every couple days. They won't be in multi-meets on Saturdays. They can only wrestle once every 7 days in a competition, and not in a multi-meet, only in a dual. So, and we put a lot of protocols and policies that we're going to put in place to mitigate any potential spread. And could it happen? Certainly, just like everywhere else, but we have a plan if that happens as well for a team that might get shut down for 2 weeks or whatnot. And the kids, just like being in-person learning, the kids want that, adults want that, and if we can try to do it safely, it's
As a model, they've been doing that at the university levels.
Yeah, UWGB's been practicing all fall long. They've been masked up. Now they got a little bit better bubble, but they've been surveillance testing, and then what they found is that the masking is huge. And with some of that surveillance testing, they're able to nip anything in the bud really quickly. So they've had the UWGB's positivity rate is less than 2%. So compared to the 40% in Brown County, UWGB is less than 2%. So, and they attribute that to the masking and continuous surveillance.
How are the,
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle, please.
So now if a coach doesn't feel comfortable, do they have to coach? And I guess also are you hearing any concerns from the coaches? I mean, the coaches are teachers, but yet I'm guessing, I don't know, what kind of concerns are you hearing any concerns from the coaches?
I've not heard any concerns from the coaches, besides that they want to start with getting the kids into whatever that environment is that they're able to get them in. So a lot of our coaches are teachers, not all of them, so that's why, that we're asking them as well to do that surveillance testing, because they're out and about more than our kids, as far as in their real life jobs. But our coaches have been itching to wait on whatever the decision is.
Thank you.
I just want to be clear that from my standpoint, from our district standpoint, from our board standpoint, so Jenny, thank you for asking the question. We absolutely, and this is coming from a former coach and coming from a former athletic director, we absolutely value education more than athletics. Cannot be more clear. Mm-hmm. The only reason that I agree to this is that we would start small and we'd be in the same groups as like we're doing on other days of the week and certainly on Wednesdays. And so Nick has clearly shown the work that he has done and the rest of the ADs have done and our coaches have done to make sure that's in small pods. It's not like we're bringing in 100 kids all in the same gymnasium. And so that's why we're not saying that that's more important or more of a focus. That's absolutely not true. Mm-hmm. Can't be more clear. Academics is always and will always be our number one focus. Our number one priority is to keep everyone safe. So again, I'm concerned about the numbers, but you guys have decided we'll move forward. We'll do the best we can. Dirk, you had a comment?
First of all, thanks for your comment about student athletes. We call them student athletes because they are students first, and that is always first and foremost. We never call them athlete students. Regardless of where the board goes to vote tonight, I'd like to thank Mr. Singer. He has taken a lead not just within our school district, but frankly in our balancing the needs of each sport and how each sport has different needs. Working with the health clinics to come up with protocols, working with the superintendents, other districts. Nick's taking a real lead on that, and I'm grateful for it.
Okay, any other questions?
Is there anything that, from a clean schedule point of view, that we should do differently? Just, we can't sanitize the pool, obviously, but for wrestling and basketball and other.
Great question.
Like
we're looking at how do we, again, mitigate any risk. So like in the fitness center, I've contracted with a company called BioPeer. It's a franchise, nationwide franchise that, they're in Clemson's football locker room, they're in Clemson's weight room, they're in Ohio State. Well, there's a franchise in Green Bay. I have them coming into the fitness center once a month to use the electrostatic sprayers to spray down all that equipment up there, along with stuff that's in the mezzanine upstairs. But again, then just asking requiring that our coaches and our kids are sanitizing in and out, taking sanitized breaks, 15-20 minutes into practice. If it's a water break, kids got to clean their hands. The balls should be wiped off with soap and water after their use to prevent potential spread. If kids got their masks on, coach has to stop practice and say, "Hey, mask got to be up." So, it's all and I have told our coaches, it's their words, their actions, their behaviors that's going to make any athletic season survive and continue on. So they know that following some of the things we're putting into place is gonna either let them continue through a season or potentially shut them down. And their schedules certainly aren't full. It's a basketball, wrestling, swim, and dance, and hockey. Their schedules are all reduced and they won't be playing their typical 25 games or going to these big multi-meets. Again, we're trying to provide that balance, that the importance of the in-person learning with the opportunities to keep those kids engaged.
Anything else?
So do we need a motion on?
Yes.
On this proposal to follow the winter sports recommendation that has been shared with us?
Yes.
I will make that motion.
Okay, motion, need a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other comments? The voice vote on this?
Vandy Creek, aye.
Johnson, aye.
Van Layden, aye.
Biscuit aye.
Derek and I.
Motion carries. I also appreciate you being a real leader in this area. So thank you for all that.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of extra effort.
Can I ask a quick question about the masks that they're using for those sports? Are they the typical paper masks or are they the cloth masks?
Whatever's comfortable to the athletes. In wrestling, they can't wear the gaiters because of the choke hazard.
Right.
But in basketball and in hockey, they can wear gaiter masks or they can wear whatever's comfortable. Of course, the companies are trying to create better masks for athletes and sell those. So kids are looking at whatever's comfortable and whatever's appropriate and feels good. But they gotta have masks on. So they're getting used to it. They're gonna have to get used to it, except in the pool.
Okay, let's move on to action item number 2, designation of election clerk.
Yeah, so each year, we nominate, or not nominate, we promote Jennifer to be our election clerk.
Promote.
So I'm asking the board to approve that for Jennifer Bauer to be the election clerk.
So moved.
Second.
Oh,
Go ahead.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 3, local control budget carryover. Keith.
Thank you, Jim.
Every year we have had the board approve it in my time in the district. Just to give a quick review of why it prevents that use it or lose it mentality. This was a year budget-wise that was very different for principals. We don't have an equipment budget, so that's what the majority of this money gets used for. It's their way if they can save money during the year to budget for larger items that they normally would not be able to work out of their budget. This year it's more than it's been in the past, quite a bit more, but I think we had some questions about this earlier. With the shutdown happening in March, April, May, June, a lot of the things that we normally would have been doing, we didn't do. And so that caused more money to be carried over. But there are a lot of expenses that were new this year and the principals all stepped up and helped with those. So I think they have good plans for how they're using it. I think it's warranted that it's a larger amount, but I'm also warning the principals that this is not the new normal, that when they get money, we need to be spending it, otherwise we need to look at the allocation, but I'm not recommending it. This is a very unusual year and I think it's warranted. So the total carryover of $140,907. So that's money that went into our fund balance last year that we would spend on a fund balance this year.
Okay, can we get a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, board and superintendent communications.
No, nothing other than, I sent that card around today, a very nice card to all of you from Jerry Menny, and appreciate your leadership and your work that you do for our community, so thank you.
I would probably just like to say that the board has been inundated with emails on both sides of this situation that we're in, and that I'm sure I read every single one of them. I'm sure everybody else did. So Want to thank our community for being very concerned about what, the health of us and our kids and our teachers and our staff, and it's been duly noted. Okay. Future board meetings and topics. Next board meeting is regularly scheduled for Wednesday, December 9th, here at the district office at 6:30. We need a voice vote to go to executive session.
Mandy Creek, aye.
Charleston.
Cameron and I.
Different July.
Kerrigan, aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Do you want me to do anything with this one too?
I have to close it and open up the executive one.
Laura?
Go ahead.
Jordan.
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, sports, man, make sure you have it closed out.
I would love to go back.